Orleans Hub. And one of the things that the news does, the news industry, every year they do these end-of-year stories. And I did work at the Daily News in Batavia for 16 years. Before the Orleans Hub, it was 17 years, actually. And you do these year-end stories, top 10 stories, favorite pictures, that kind of thing. And I remember the first year, that was the first year I had to do it all myself, because when I was at the Daily News, we had 10 or 12 people, we all took a story. But all that is to say, going through the articles through the year, I noticed that there were some neat people, or people did some extraordinary things that first year in 2013. And we decided, and I say we, Karen Sowitz is the publisher of the Orleans Hub. She is in the Midwest visiting her son. Otherwise, she would be here. But we thought it would be neat to just recognize some outstanding citizens. And that first year, it was just an article, like on December 31st, and that was it. And we had a hunch, why don't we have a awards program, and maybe 15 people will show up, who knows? And lo and behold, we have had like 50 to 70 people every year, which is great, that people show up, and it ends up being kind of an inspirational evening, and I'll try to stay out of it and really kind of let you do your thing. So, I would like to just say a little bit about you and give you each a chance to talk for 2 or 3 minutes. I don't want you to have a panic attack about that. You don't have to if you don't want to. So let me just go through it. So there are 10 outstanding citizens. And when I reached out to all of you, one guy declined. He did not want his award. It's Mark Bennett Sr., and I told him we're still going to talk about him because he feels like anyone would have done what he did. And just to give you a little more background, I could not give a public speech without a Buffalo Bills reference somewhere. And in some ways, I think of these awards as kind of the Beast Mode Awards. And if you know the story behind the Beast Mode, that is Marshawn Lynch, who used to play for the Buffalo Bills. Then he went to the Seattle Seahawks, and he's probably the toughest guy to tackle. And there's this famous run of him when he went to the Seahawks. The New Orleans Saints, every guy on their team tried to tackle him, and he just would not be stopped. It was the end of the game in the fourth quarter, and that was kind of where the legend of Beast Mode came for Marshawn Lynch. And that's kind of what I think of with the outstanding citizens. They're just people that just keep pushing and will not be denied. So anyway, with Mark Bennett, the story behind him, there was a helicopter crash. Let me just check the date on that. It was I believe it was in April. It was April 24th. And I get some of the text that the firefighters get, and I got one about a helicopter crash, and I had never seen it. And I hate to be like, that might be different. Or, the news guy in me gets kind of amped up about that. And then when you're there, you're thinking this could be a bad situation. And, as you get closer, it was near the Gaines Airport. You can see the dark smoke in the sky. And there was a pilot who's a very good pilot, from what everyone has told me. He knew what he was doing, but he had some engine trouble, and the helicopter, it was an experimental helicopter, and it crashed, and there was a ball of fire, and it just so happened that Mark Bennett was driving home to Waterport, and initially he saw the helicopter in the air and just pulled over by the side of the road and was watching it, and it crashed. And he tells me anybody would have done this. But I know from experience that most people, they don't jump into motion. They don't go into beast mode. So he went through the electric fence. This was in a cattle field, if you know where that is, up there on 279. And he pulled the pilot. He undid the seatbelt, rolled him because he was on fire, and really saved his life. And Mark is like, anybody would have done this. But I don't think so. So I just want to acknowledge Mark. His neighbor is here, Carol Miller, and she's going to take his certificate for him. All right, so let me talk about the second person, Brett Sabrowski. Do you want to come on down, Brett, or what do you think? I don't know. Now, Brett has actually been in the news recently around here because he is running for sheriff. But he's been in the news, too, a lot in Rochester because he does these ultra-endurance challenges to raise money for wounded warriors, wounded veterans, in different causes. He swam across Lake Ontario for 32 miles.
Bad idea.
And run through Death Valley. And he's done really a lot of things. And then last July, he came up with this idea. It was the 50th anniversary of the Special Olympics. And Brett thought, why don't I run 50 hours straight on the Erie Canal? You could have just run 50 miles, maybe. So that ends up being 175 miles. And if you think about a marathon that is 26 miles, that's about 6.5 marathons. And this is nonstop running. You could do a 50-hour challenge to watch Breaking Bad or something. And most people might make it, 15 hours or so. And actually had a good pace. He wasn't walking at the end. So it was an impressive thing, and recognizing the people with disabilities. And he had set a goal for $10,000 and raised at least 13. And was an inspirational person, for 5 counties that you crossed on foot, running at night with like a headlamp.
2 nights.
2 nights with a headlamp and the pitch of dark. So, and that is something that has inspired the community. I mean, definitely, and definitely went into beast mode, Brett. So, I'm going to give him the microphone.
I don't know if I need that.
All right.
I talk about it. All right. But, no, I'm really humbled to be amongst such great people and award recipients and to receive this award. When I think of Special Olympics, I think of 2 things. I think of inclusiveness, and I think about greatness. And it's really through the ability to have these folks compete is where they find their personal greatness. And it's just so awe-inspiring. So people ask me, how did I get to the point where I would run 50 hours? And it was a man at work. I worked for the Rochester Police Department. There's a lieutenant named Lieutenant Wozniak. And I saw over the 27 years I've been there, I watched him give thousands of hours to the Special Olympics. And slowly he drew me in. Like his compassion, his passion for it, really had an effect. And I started volunteering along the way. And then before I knew it, this came up. So it's people like him, people who give back to those less fortunate. They really affect people in ways that he doesn't even know, that he probably doesn't even fully understand the people he's touched. So then the why didn't become apparent until, I thought the why was I was going to raise money, I was going to raise awareness. But it was about 40 hours into it, and I'm not even sure where I was, but I know it was dark out. I knew it hurt to breathe, it hurt to just exist. And I started thinking, why? It always comes down to that when you're about ready to break. And I started thinking that, the why was the money, but I already raised the money, I already raised the awareness. But it was truly just to catch a glimpse into their life, into a Special Olympians' lives, the adversity they face every day. And at that point, I just wanted to tackle that the way they do, with courage, with dignity, with a smile on their face, with compassion. And I've been to many Special Olympic events, and what you never see is one of those folks quit. So certainly I wasn't gonna. So, at the end, when it all came down to it, those are truly my heroes, Special Olympians. So it's just a great cause and great people.
All right, the next person is Jack Coman. He is the Boy Scout leader for Troop 59 in Clarendon. And I don't remember if I did an Eagle Scout award on your son many years ago, 10 years ago or so. So it's kind of interesting. A lot of times these involved fathers with Boy Scouts, when their kids go through the program, the fathers go on to other things. And one thing that struck me about Jack is he has stayed committed to Troop 59. I mean, you just start to figure out what's going on, and then you kind of age out. I feel like that as a Little League coach now. We were just getting good, the St. Mary's Little League team. and then my son turned 13. But anyway, I did get a message from some parents in Clarendon. I believe it was last August. They were like, this Jack Homan is something else. We got, I think initially it was 4 Eagle Scouts, but the award program turned into 6 or 7. And, you know, talking to those kids, you found out that Jack has mentored 32 kids to become Eagle Scouts in 16 years. And there's something to be said for someone who inspires people to finish. And I think especially in the Boy Scout program, many of the kids fizzle after Cub Scouts. And really the people standing at the finish line, it's a small number. So anyway, people said a lot of good things about Jack, just being a motivator and doing these things that no one wants to do. The paperwork that people don't want to do the paperwork, Jack. But he's willing to do those jobs and let some other people do the more fun things, and Jack does some of the fun things too. But I think there's something to be said for a volunteer who really pushes people to be persistent and finish. And this is really the future of our community, our country, and the world. We can get people to stick with it, frankly, and be completionist. I don't know how you best say that, but I do think people get shifty these days and are quick to give up. And there's something to be said about the Eagle Scout projects that these kids in Clarendon do. They are not just picnic tables. I mean, these are elaborate projects. The flagpole war memorial at Hillside. I'm not doing it justice, but these are amazing projects. And Jack, he also has a lot of contacts in the community. I see Melissa Erlin is here, and that's part of it. You know, you got to direct the kids to the right people. But I am just saying, I'm impressed, Jack.
I definitely. Oh, okay. People who know me, I'm very loud. First of all, I want to thank the parents for putting up with some of the stuff that the kids have to go through. Going to camp, I've got some phenomenal parents that volunteer to be assistant scoutmasters. One of them's here, my buddy John. My friend Ron is here. His son was one of my Eagle Scouts. John's second son is working on his Eagle project right now. He'll be number 33 for me. And Melissa, I want to thank her because she always finds us good projects and things like that for the community. Most of all, though, I'd like to thank my wife of 4 years. Who lets me go to all these things. Have a good time. Bye-bye. See you in a week. You know, that kind of thing. And I always know that when I come back, she's there. So, you know, that makes me feel good. The only thing I've done as far as motivating them is I give them the opportunity, they do the work. If they do the work, they get the award. If they don't do the work, they don't. Tom was saying it's a very small percentage to get Eagle, 4%. Right now in our troops, since in the last 16 years, we're at about 85% getting their Eagle. So if they want it, it's there. They have to get it. Thank you very much.
Well, some of these are tough. I guess tragic, frankly, and how people still keep giving, and that we have a few here tonight that I guess particularly impressed me, that they, after experiencing some tragedy, are still very giving people. And I did want to talk about Tony and Laura Sideri. They're actually not here. Uncle Pete is here, though, Pete Sideri. But I've known Tony and Laura since they were kids. That's one thing about getting a little older and staying in the community. You remember people from when they were kids and they grow up. And in Laura and Tony's case, they join the military, they become doctors. And they were living in San Antonio, and they have 3 kids. But I remember through Facebook, it was actually on Pete's Facebook. It was right before Christmas. He had posted about his, nephew Leon. he had a bad case of the flu, and initially I just thought, well, it's the flu. And then on Christmas Day, Leon actually died from the flu, and to Tony and Laura's credit, they've become big advocates for getting the vaccine, the flu vaccine, and we even though they're in San Antonio, they've since moved to Dayton, Ohio. We had a fundraiser actually through the Albion Rotary Club, just for Leon's fund, which they created to raise awareness for flu vaccinations and also presents for children of military people at Christmas. So anyway, we've had some events through Leon's fund where people would get the vaccine and just to raise awareness about it. But I just give them credit for, they're not in our community anymore, but they're certainly loved people, and they're really just trying to make sure that kids get the vaccine, and people are aware of how deadly, frankly, the flu can be. Even people of perfect health, within a day or two, you can be in trouble. Anyway, Pete, do you want to come up?
Sorry. I'm the first guy to use that. I didn't plan on even being here tonight. I didn't know this was going on until about 4 o'clock this afternoon. And I just drove in from Greece where I worked till about 5:45. And didn't realize that nobody from the family was here. Anthony and Laura are out in Dayton, Ohio on the Air Force Base. So Tom asked me to accept the award. I want to, on behalf of my nephew and his wife, and Leon's siblings, and the one on the way. I want to say thank you. Toughest thing in the world is a parent burying a child. And for my nephew and his wife Laura to be able to give back after that, especially so recently, says a lot about them. So I know they're going to continue to keep Leon's memory alive, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of them. And I said Leon's siblings and his sister on the way in May, and Leon's grandparents, my brother Paul, his wife Margie, and Laura's parents, Leon's grandparents on Laura's side, Nathan and Gail Lyman, and all of Leon's aunts, uncles, great aunts, and great uncles, and cousins. Thank you very much.
Well, and even though they don't live here, I think I said they're not part of the community. Clearly they are, and they're much loved people. So the next one, I think I had got a little blurred, right? I don't remember where. I had heard about the playground project at the old Medina High School, and I don't want to say I was a little bit skeptical. Maybe I don't appreciate art. As I get a little bit older, I think I'm appreciating it a little bit more, and I'm noticing flowers as I get older in life and things like that, and I think I have a little bit of artistic appreciation, part of getting older. But anyway, I'd heard about the playground project where 29 artists were taking over the old Medina High School. If you know the story there, the school, I believe, closed in 91, 92. Then a church ran it, but they didn't need the whole building. But so the Calvary Church was in it, and the thrift store. Anyway, the thrift store went to a different spot in Medina, and the Calvary Church is building a new building. So anyway, the building was vacant for, it's going to be developed into apartments. And Michael Hungerford had this idea. he had read a story in the New York Times, I think it was in Brooklyn, maybe, where there was a big empty building, and that basically they just had artists come in and make some funky stuff. And, you know, to his credit, it's one thing to have an idea, but to make it happen is something else. And he had connected with, I think I should let you tell the story, Michael. Yeah. Someone from Buffalo. Anyway, she found 29 very good artists. And I went in a little bit skeptical and was really knocked off my feet, seeing some of these things that people came up with. And I think part of a strong community is really embracing creative people. They should be part of the equation, and it was amazing to see the things that they did. I'm going to let him talk, because he's better at this.
Did anybody go to Playground? So what I'm going to say probably is going to sound stupid since no one in here went. But yeah, it was, so I saw this idea where, and actually maybe let me back up. Calling this art from the beginning, I was uncomfortable with because art is kind of an intimidating word. People, you know, I'm not into art. I'm not really into art either, but I really love cool stuff. And so when I saw this idea play out in Brooklyn, it wasn't about art, it was about creating these immersive experiences that you could walk into and just kind of escape your daily routine for a little while. So I went to a gallery owner that I knew in Buffalo. I said, you know, I've got this building in Medina. Do you think it's possible to do something like this there? She was like, well, let me come and look at the building and see. She was enthusiastic about it, and so every day for about a year, I thought this thing was going to fall apart and it would never happen. But we just kept kind of putting the work in and doing it. And these gallery owners in Buffalo did an amazing job. We held an application process. People had to actually pay to apply to do work in the building, and we got 130 responses. And we picked 20. We were going to pick 20. There were so many good ones. We picked 29, and took the building over for a weekend in October. And I'll say that there was a lot of attention to all the people from out of town who came to Medina for the weekend, and it got a great response from Buffalo and Rochester. But the thing that I really valued most at the end of the weekend were how many people from Orleans County and Medina in particular came to the event. Because I think for me, it's not about like the art again. It's about just kind of seeing something different. It knocks you out of your everyday routine, and hopefully it propels some young person or old person to do something crazy or different, or execute on something some idea they had. But yeah, the response has been overwhelming. I really appreciate this. It was completely unexpected, but it's nice to be recognized for something that I put a lot of work into. And hopefully, if we do it again, you guys all come. It would be end of September, October, so clear your calendars.
Well, we read about it on the blog, so we know it.
Yeah, well, that's good. ArtPlaygroundNewYork.com. You'll see a lot more pictures there, and you can follow us on Instagram as well, so you can keep up on all the latest happenings. Thanks.
And not to belabor that, but it's just amazing how some people can see an old building and just see different possibilities. And I think the Hungerford family has worked some magic with a lot of these old buildings that people might have given up on. So it's nothing without. That was a lot of exclamation points. You really had to see that.
Tom, where's the building?
It was the old Medina High School. It's near the YMCA. And it was something else. Anyway, the next lady is near and dear. Sorry, I think of Penny Cole, and I don't want to say it, I think of her as like another mother in the community for me, but that's okay. But anyway, Penny Cole from Holly. And, the neat thing about being in a small town and I guess being open to people is, you get to know people, and then staying here, you see them, you see their kids grow up. I remember Heather, her daughter, when she was in high school. And now she's 40 years old.
I'm only 30, so I don't know how that happens.
But anyway, Heather and Penny, are you a cheerleading coach too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in a dynamic duo with the cheerleading, and I gotta say, I'm used to the cheerleaders, a little clapping, a little yelling, but the Holly cheerleaders are something else. And I guess I say this because Penny really pushes for excellence. She is a nice lady, but she really, and I would say similar to Jack, really pushes people to excellence. And one of the things that struck me that I didn't realize about the Holly cheerleaders is they go into nursing homes and they do a lot of community service. And one of the things, I think I've covered the Ronald McDonald House fundraiser that Penny has led for 12 years. And and she was recognized by the Ronald McDonald House organization as for like their best fundraiser. I mean, if you could get her behind a cause, you are winning, for sure. But anyway, I went to the law enforcement versus teachers basketball game last year, and I've been to a few of these. I don't want to say at other schools, maybe 100 people show up. People aren't really paying attention, not really a big deal. But when you went to Holly, you would have thought the circus had come to town with this basketball game. And part of it was a fundraiser for the Ronald McDonald House. They raised over $4,000. And one of the things that struck me is just how loved Penny Cole is by all these people at Holly. I mean, to walk in her shoes for a day must be quite a feeling, I dare say. And I would say, one of the things that I've noticed about Holly, and I don't want to make the other people mad, is they have a lot of people with this X factor working in the school district, the John Grillos, Dan Orbakers. I mean, it's quite a group of people that just inspire excellence out of people, and they love everybody, not just the high honor roll people. So when we do these awards, part of it is, you were looking for something kind of extraordinary in the past year. The Ronald McDonald House thing, that was the biggest, the most money they had ever raised. But really, Penny, I guess I get to make the rules here, Penny. You can do some lifetime achievements. So, I'm really glad to give this to Penny. What a great lady.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I can
Cheerleading
coach. Those of you that know me know that I do not like this. I am humbled, I am honored to be with the people that are also winning this award. I don't feel like I'm worthy with some of the things that you've all done. Two words come to mind: gratitude and blessed. I am blessed with 6 amazing children, 3 great-grandsons, my best friend from high school for 42 years. They are all behind me, but none of this would have been possible without our cheerleaders, our school, and our town of Holly. They get behind any crazy idea we come up with. And unfortunately, in Holly, we've had at least 6 children that have used the Ronald McDonald House. We currently have a sophomore there that's battling leukemia. So if you haven't had a child that's sick, you are blessed beyond measure. We're fighting for him every day. We're working on yet another project. We probably won't make the money that we made last year, but I'm very proud of our cheerleaders and how much they give back, and they give back willingly. We try to stress upon them it's important to be a good cheerleader, but it's more important to be a good person, because cheerleading will end when they graduate, but you have the whole rest of your life to be a great person. So I am extremely grateful from the bottom of my heart. So humbled and so honored. Thank you.
She's a popular lady.
Yeah, Penny.
Yes.
This is Clarendon, though.
All right. The East Side was well represented this year. Well, the next person is Leonel Rosario. I've known this fella since he was a teenager, I think. And he has built one of the most successful restaurants in Orleans County, probably the best reviewed restaurant, I think. I mean, they get a lot of good pub, in the Buffalo News and different. Where have you just written up this past week? And one of them. So, I mean, I guess part of it is it's more than just having good intentions and being good. There is something to be said about excellence, and the Mariachi del Oro is an excellent place. But I've also known Lionel. I'm picturing you doing the Mexican hat dance. And he shares the Mexican culture. He's been doing this for 20 years. Even when he was a farm worker, the guy had to be dead tired, even after a long day at the restaurant. Just sharing the culture with food and with dance. And, I have to bring up, what was the big thing in the past year? Medina, they do the Day of the Dead, and he's done that at Mariachi for a few years.
Yeah.
And it was very popular, and as awesome as the restaurant is, it's only so big, and I don't know if it was your idea, to bring it out into downtown Medina. And despite being a rainy day, there was quite a crowd there, and it was an awesome thing. And another thing about him that struck me is Medina, they do that dinner on Main Street where they got a row of tables. It's like a quarter-mile long. And a couple hundred people are there. And initially, Mike Zambito was the caterer for it, and they had to cap it at about 100. And he had reached out to Lionel, we could make this bigger if we work together. But now there's like 225-ish. But the thing that impresses me about him is he works with the other restaurants, and he will even do cooking demonstrations at their places. And, he's just not a competitive person that way. He really is a generous person with the Medina restaurants. I think those guys have a good network. That's maybe a self-help group. If you're a restaurant owner, you are best friends with the other restaurant owners. But I'm just impressed by how generous he is. And he's part of that Medina resurgence, a big part of it. And a great family, too. All right, Lionel. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right.
Thank you, guys. I feel really privileged to be recognized and to have this award. For me, as the beginnings when I was doing my dancing, the whole deal was to teach and to share. So, I'm from Mexico. I love sharing my culture, my tradition with everybody. So that's how we started dancing a little bit and going to schools and teaching little children to dance too. That's how everything kind of started out there. And later we were lucky to start doing with the food business. And in the food business, I really found something that just allowed me to go even more and to share more with the community, not just because of the food, but more culture behind everything what I do and everything that I cook. So our place, we decided to start doing Dia de los Muertos, big celebration in Old Puerto in Oaxaca. So I come from the state of Oaxaca, and it's big over there. And over here at the schools, my kids, they've been to Albion School since they were little kids. They teach them a lot about Dia de los Muertos. So in my house, they come and they're really excited. We're learning about this, and I'm telling them, well, yeah, this is our traditions and the cultures. So I wanted it to teach more. I wanted it to share it more with all the people, and so we started doing it at the restaurant, small scale. But it was so many people that you can fit in, and it was, we couldn't really make it that big. So luckily in Medina, with food, like I said, we found this unique, a lot of guys that have businesses, and everybody just gets along together, and we do all these events together. And one day I come and I told them, I would love to do this kind of event. If you guys let me and help me out, I would love to bring it out to Main Street so we can make it bigger and let all the people come and enjoy. And everybody said yes, and we had a lot of help, from GOARD and a couple of organizations that have worked with me in the past. So they came and helped me out with the other Los Muertos. And the weather didn't cooperate because it is November 1st, and Western New York, you never know. But that day was raining, it was cold, but we did have about over 500 people showed up to our event, and we did lots of food, and we did lots of bread and hot chocolate, and we demonstrate in a bigger version the culture and why we do it, and it was really unique, for me to see reaction of a lot of the kids that showed up, and everybody was having a good time, and that's the whole meaning of what I do, these kind of events, and I feel really lucky to be able to come into the communities, and they allowed me to do this kind of events, because I like to learn from all of you guys, your culture and your traditions, and I like to share mine too, so we can all be together, and because I live here and I've been living here for so many years, so my kids are from this community, so I want to give back, and I want to learn a lot too from you guys, so thank you very much.
All right, Tammy Ashton. Well, the next outstanding citizen is Tammy. And this is another person, frankly, who has endured tragedy and has a giving heart and is making good out of it. That's not really the way to say it, but Tammy's daughter, she did die of an overdose in 2016. And it's tough in a small county. I've been, I guess, reading a lot about this because I'm trying to do a better job, frankly, as a reporter. And there aren't a lot of communities that have a network to help people. But Tammy has helped create the Orleans Recovery Hope, Orleans Hope Recovery, which has a network of mentors and recovery coaches. And you are a mentor and a recovery coach. And which is amazing. In a lot of small counties, you just don't have an organization like that. And there's been a number of public awareness events. They have a good relationship with law enforcement. It's just an awesome thing. For so many families that are really devastated by the disease, by the epidemic, and her having gone through it just gives her more credibility, I think, to connect with a lot of these families, and it is a lot of families. So I just thank you for being a giving person and taking the lead on this.
Okay. I lost my daughter in 2016 to a fatal overdose. That is when I decided I couldn't keep silent any longer, and I had to say something because I knew I wasn't the only one, and my daughter wasn't the only one. So with a group of other individuals in the community, we founded Orleans Recovery Hope Begins Here. We have a family support group that meets the third Saturdays. We are located in the Arnold Gregory complex, which is fairly a new home for us. So we have what we call a coffee talk, and family members, loved ones of anybody suffering from substance use disorder are welcome. There's no pressure, you don't have to talk. It just lets people know that they're not alone. We also have what we call Missing Angels, which is a grief group for people the third Thursday of every month at the same location. And this is for people who have lost a loved one to an overdose. We advocate, and there's a big push right now in New York State to get the hospitals on board to offer treatment when someone goes into an emergency room instead of discharging them. to hook them up with a peer or a coach, and to offer what they call a bridge, to provide Suboxone or something. We call it MAT, medical assisted treatment. That's a big push right now in New York State, and it's something that's needed in our hospital locally as well, because we do have overdoses here. It is in your backyard. It is our kids, our parents, our aunts, our grandparents. It's your neighbors. You might not even know. I didn't know. It took me a long time. So it's important, and people need to talk about it, because the more we talk about it, the stigma will go away. People don't talk about it. They put on their little faces, they go about their day, and they go home and they live in hell. That's what happens when you live with somebody who's in active addiction. So Orleans Recovery Hope begins here. We are pushing, we're advocating. The 30th of March, there is a trip to Albany where we will be advocating for laws to change for treatment, to be more available in emergency rooms, for MAT to be available, and for the stigma. We got to get rid of the stigma. They're not junkies. They're someone's kids, parents. You know, we're burying daughters, sons, mothers, fathers, grandparents. And as a community, in a small community, everybody needs to do a part. Everybody needs to come together. I used to go to Monroe County to meet with people there, and we need something here. And we're always looking for people to join us, volunteers to join us. We are at the Arnold Gregory, like I mentioned, in 190. We are all volunteers. We have a Facebook page. We have a website. And please do talk about it. And talk about it in a positive way. Even though it's not a positive thing, there's always hope. And if you love someone or know someone struggling, don't give up hope. Don't shut the door. Keep talking. Keep communicating. And when they're ready for help, you do whatever you can to get them help then, before they change their mind. You can always call us. We're available 24/7. Our number is 585-210-8750. So that's it. And I just thank you so much for this award.
Well, it is impressive, frankly. Many of you, and as a community, we certainly owe you a debt of gratitude for the many ways that you give back. So the next person, I have known her for a little while, and I remember her as the Kendall English teacher, and then she was the GCC teacher. I think you were still doing that, Melissa Ostrom. And I knew that she was working on some books, but I will tell you, I've written a lot of stories on the self-published author, and I am one of those people. And it's okay. I guess you are still an author, but Melissa was published by Macmillan, and it was a book, The Beloved Wild, and it was really about the pioneer settlers, and it was really an eye-opener, because I don't think they get much due. And it's hard to imagine, frankly, coming here, dense forest, no map, no GPS, really no one to help you, really. And it was often teenagers or people in their 20s. And she really helped me to appreciate, really, the life of the pioneers. And this was a major book that has been well received, and she has another one coming out in April. But I do think about the beast mode. Melissa. And just how tenacious you have to be and such a hard worker to make it happen and do an excellent job and have a good story, a good idea, and pull it all together. And then you got to sell the thing. But honestly, so it is a story about the pioneers, and I think about that as a county. How do we celebrate these people? Our 200th anniversary is in 6 years of Orleans County. The pioneers were actually here a little bit before that. I think we were Genesee County. She has all this in her book. She kind of weaves in a lot of facts while telling the story. But that is something that I wonder about. How could we recognize the pioneers and maybe an outstanding citizen could think about that? But anyway, I just want to acknowledge what a great job she did with this book. All right.
I don't know if I need that. I am
Teacher,
an English
teacher
teacher.
voice.
Yeah, you know, I am not from this area. I'm actually from the Jamestown, New York area. Do you want to go over here? And I came here for a teaching position. It was just sort of one of those things where I was fresh out of college and applying and came here for the interview. And Keith Palmer was the principal at Kendall High School at the time, and he interviewed me. And I was driving home, and they called to offer me the job on my way home, so it was really exciting. I just kind of turned right back around. But I came here without knowing anyone. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any family in the area, and I was really young. And I just was so struck by how warm the people were here. In fact, my first day here, I stopped at Partica's for lunch, and this was my first day actually living in the area, and the woman working there said, "You're the new English teacher, aren't you?" and it was like something out of a movie, you know, like Anne from Naples or something. Like, they know you just because you're different. So yeah, and then I worked at Kendall for 11 years before my kids came along, and then I decided just to teach at GCC. But when I was at Kendall, so many of the kids were farm kids, and I always joke that you never just got an apple at Kendall, you got a bushel of apples, and I really did one time get a bushel of apples, and I was just, you know, so in love with that experience, and it was a tough job to leave, but I decided to do it to have more time with my kids and to do more writing. And as I learned more about the history of this area, I started coming up with this idea for a novel, and when I wrote it, I was thinking of it as a love letter to this area, the beauty of this area and the loving, kind people here. And yeah, so it's so nice to be honored because I almost feel like I'm getting a thank you for my thank you, you know. But yeah, and my next book that comes out actually at the end of March comes back to this area. You'll recognize some of the settings, even when I change the wording. For instance, there's one place that will look a lot like Hamlin Beach because that influenced my writing. And I have another book with my agent right now that she's considering, and it's called Meet You at Five Corners. And it's about a fictional inn at Five Corners. So, you know, it's fun using little phrases from this area. And yeah, you know, I hope I can continue to honor this place with my writing. And I really, you know, I'm really so happy to be living here and having my family here and getting to know so many nice people. Thank you.
I think I had alluded to it. I have been living here now for 23 years. I married an Albion lady, Marcia Holden, and I've got to know some really cool people. And probably the coolest, no offense, Louis Shakur, is probably Chris Wilson. He really had an angelic just presence about him. And the guy did some incredible things with the World Life Institute. And honestly, that should be like a national bestseller, how this group in Waterport has welcomed 130 kids who are orphans in Afghanistan, Chechnya, where's another one? Bosnia. And we've had people from Sri Lanka after the tsunami. And it's an amazing thing how a volunteer organization makes it happen. And Chris was one of the guys who connected with the embassies. He went into these countries and talked to some of their surviving family members and created a comfort for them so these kids could come and spend the summer here. And there have been 3 of the kids who had some medical issues who have stayed long term. And Chris handled all those medical issues. And even just today, my wife and 2 of my kids are in Florida, and my son had to go to urgent care. He's a runner, and he had a horrible blister. And just trying to talk to MVP and figure that out is kind of a nightmare. And I can't imagine the miracles that Chris pulled off connecting, or just working out the details. But the guy would work out the details. I mean, it was an amazing thing. But I kind of just knew him as this distinguished gentleman. He wasn't a pushy guy. He just made things happen. And one of the things, to the World Life Institute, they have a school on Stillwater Road, and that has been going a little over 20 years with a number of students. Initially, it was kids who got, I wouldn't say their GED, but I guess it was. They could get the GED, but now it's mainly for people learning English as a second language. And that is kind of an amazing bright star out on the prairie of Waterport. But the World Life Institute, they also created the colonnade at the former Lions Club over near Cooper Funeral Home. And that has become an education center. They've had a lot of neat programs that Chris helped work out, a nuclear awareness and other things. And, you know, one of the things about staying in a community for a long time, you start to care about people, and, you know, you're friends with people. And you know, frankly, you check the obits because you know people. And I was shocked, and I had hoped it wasn't true. Last May 28th, there was a very short obit initially about Chris Wilson, and there wasn't a picture. And I just hoped it wasn't Chris. But then a couple days later, there was a longer obit, and I am still kind of reeling from this. I can't imagine for his family and the people that know him well. But I just wanted to recognize, and certainly Karen at the publisher of the Orleans Hub, just the many great things that he did. And you think about the ambassadors that he's put out into the world for our country, for our community. And really, when you talk about solving the world's problems, that's what we need more of. So Deborah is here. I don't know who might want to come up, Deborah. I don't know. Deborah and Samuel, Chris's son.
I may not need this either. I'm also an English teacher. I did bring notes, though, because of the nature of the occasion. But tell me, do I need the mic? Okay. Okay, thank you, Tom, and your board for this posthumous award to my husband. He was always very comfortable speaking from any podium, any time of day or night, and I hope some of his skill rub off on me for a few minutes tonight. He was definitely the master of the sound bite, so I was saying to Samuel in the car on the way here, whenever the two of us were interviewed, I would never be included because he just knew exactly how to put things, you know, succinctly and, you know, so that people really could relate to it. And I always talk too much and too much detail, so. But we were so pleased to receive a call about this award. The Orleans Hub has been a great friend of ours. By the way, we filled up a lot of chairs here with our friends. I think maybe half of the people here, between the students and friends of ours and World Life Institute members, there are a lot of friendly faces and familiar faces. But we so appreciate the hub because I know you're really dedicated to emphasizing the positive, uplifting, and inspiring things that happen in our community, and often things that wouldn't come to public notice, like things that we've learned here tonight about, you know, really wonderful things that have happened, people who have done remarkable things. And so we're so appreciative of you. And today's world, obviously, things are, you know, more and more difficult, more and more challenging, more and more divided, it seems sometimes. So it's really great to have a local force that sort of brings us together and helps us be aware of each other's accomplishments and really doing life-affirming and positive things. And Chris would, from that point of view, be so pleased to know that he was included in the list of honorees tonight. For those who don't know about our project, and the main thing that I think Chris is being honored for, Project Life for Orphans began about 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, based in Waterport, and since 1997 we've brought about 130 children from different war-torn areas of the world for summer programs in Waterport. These kids all have, they don't come from orphanages, they stay in their home countries with family members, so they have places, safe places to go back to.